everyone, I'm back with another Halloween card. So this time I'm using CC Designs Roberto's Rascals Witch Sue image and getting it lined up on my little Fiskars stamp press and then inking it up with My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink. And then I am stamping it onto CC Designs Copic Quality 110 pound cardstock. I was planning on coloring this image in with Copics and then decided I wanted most of her outfit to be like black. And I decided to go with colored pencils instead, mostly because I find that way easier. When you're doing a lot of coloring with black, it's so much easier with colored pencils than with Copics, because I just find to get the right look with Copics, if you use, several shades of gray, and it takes a lot of blending, and I just can't be bothered more often than not. So I'll get to that in a minute though. So I started with her skin and decided I wanted to give it a nice green tint. So I used a couple of the lighter colors I'm using the Essentials and the Primaries set of Spectrum Noir colored pencils. And I colored on a bit of like actual skin tones first, but then I'm adding these 3 different shades of green to her skin to give it a nice witch tint. And then my odorless mineral spirits and a blending stump to blend them out. And these are artist grade odorless mineral spirits. If you haven't seen it, please check out my Prismacolor and odorless mineral spirits video. There's a lot more info on that. I've had people emailing me saying like, oh, I found our odorless mineral spirits in like the paint section at the hardware store. Do not use that stuff. It is so bad for you. There is a huge difference between regular paint thinner and artist grade odorless mineral spirits. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So I did her skin. Her hair I did not blend. I just used the 3 shades of purple just because I didn't want to blend it and lose, the definition, because you can just quickly scribble on like strands basically. So I left the purple alone. And then for her outfit, like I said, I wanted it to be black. So I just am using the black colored pencil and coloring mostly along the edges, kind of leaving the center area blank, because when I break down the waxes with the odorless mineral spirits, I can pull more of the color into the center there, but it gives that nice gradient with little to no effort. So I'm only using 1 pencil, and yet I get a fun blended and gradient look, so it's not just solid black that you can't see anything. So you still want all that definition. So this is the easiest way to achieve that. I did my previous video, it was like making a card 96 with the Bellerific Friday, and I was doing it on craft cardstock. I talked a bit more about these Spectrum Noir pencils and my thoughts on them. I had said in that video that I don't think they're quite as pigmented as Prismacolors, and it's true, it takes a little more effort to blend them and a little bit more, you have to color a little bit more of them than you would with the Prismacolors, but I still think they're great for the price, and I do love that you have the 3 shades of each color, so light, medium, dark. For blending, it just kind of takes the thought out of it. So you just grab a set and go. And I'm finding that the Essentials and the Primary set, those 2 sets, pretty much can kind of cover you for the whole gamut. And then the other sets, there's like the Floral, the Nature, and the whatever the water one is. My brain stopped. But anyway, those ones are more if you want certain shades, you want more blues or you want more reds and pinks and that sort of thing. Whereas if you just want a good selection, I highly recommend the Essentials and the Primary set. So I'm just going along and coloring in the rest of this image. So using some purples again, and then using some oranges. And then I left the web areas blank and then just used the lightest gray pencil just to give it a little bit of color, but not much at all. And then quickly colored in the little candies. And then for the shading, I always find it easier just to use Copics for kind of the shadows and that along the ground rather than fiddling with the pencils. And I always just have a harder time getting a more blended look when I do the shading around an image. So I just grab my Copics for this because it's just grab and go. My standard go-to Copics, which are W3, W1, and W00. And you just take care not to color over any of the colored pencil areas because the Copics can actually pick up some of that color. So I don't want to do that, and I don't want to ruin my markers. So I just make sure to stay outside the lines with that. And then my orange wink of Stella, which I went over the orange areas on the image with that. And then I just used clear on a couple parts of the rest of the image and then just left it. I didn't want to, completely coat this thing in wink of Stella, even though you can. It's Halloween, you can get away with it. But I just wanted a little bit of glitter since I went more with the effort of blending and all that stuff. I didn't want to completely cover it with the glitter. And then for the card base, I decided to go completely nuts. I'm just a standard white card base. This is the same CC Designs Coat Quality 110 pound cardstock. I masked off the top part, which will be the back of the card, right above the spine of the card, with some masking tape. And then I've got this large stamp. This is from my Spooked Out Sentiment set. And I kind of designed the stamp to be used to create backgrounds. So I'm using My Favorite Things Grout Gray Hybrid ink. You can't see it at all in the stamp positioner. I could see it just enough, like just the wetness of the ink, I could see it, so that I could line this up several times and just stamp it repeatedly onto my card front. And I chose the Grout Gray because I wanted it to be very pale for the background. And I chose the hybrid ink because it will not smear or bleed. My original idea was I was going to sponge inks over this, but then decided that the Grout Gray ink would be too light for that. If I started sponging like distress inks over it, you would not even see the stamping I did. So instead, I'm laying out a towel to kind of protect my work surface so I don't have splatters everywhere. And I grabbed the same distress inks I was going to sponge and instead just press them onto my craft sheet. And I'm using crushed olive, seedless preserves, and spiced marmalade. And I'm getting a paintbrush just really, really wet and smushing it into the ink that I'd pressed down and then just flicking that onto the card front tons of times. So I've got this cool just splatter everywhere all across the card front. And I had completely covered the back of the card there with the rest, 2 more pieces of the masking paper just to completely protect it so it didn't get splatters. Although now thinking about it, I could have just left it. It would have had, you know, some of that over splatter and it would have looked really cool. But I don't know. I was just in a groove here and not really thinking. It's always funny when you look back when I'm editing videos and it's like, oh, I would have done this instead. So it does look cool though, with the back being so crisp and clean and the front is all splattery and fun. Anyway, I'm going to trim down my main image here. I just got this Fiskars paper cutter and I am loving it. My old one is over 10 years old and it's just starting to bite the dust. It's literally falling apart. So I finally got this new one and I'm loving it. I've only had it for a few days. So trim down the main image and then I'm stamping another sentiment from my Spooked Out Sentiments onto a scrap of MFT's Grout Gray cardstock. And then I'm using one of MFT's Pinking Edge Circle Stacks Dynamics, say that 3 times fast, and ran that through my die cut machine. And then I used a piece of black licorice cardstock to mat this main image here, and I trimmed down the bottom of it a little bit as well. So get that all lined up so it's got a nice little black frame on it. And then just some black baker's twine, that's doodle twine from Doodlebug. And then some foam tape, of course, just to pop up this main image onto my card base here. And you really can't see, and even in a couple of the final pictures, that background I created with the stamp and the Grout Gray ink. But in real life, you can see it's just subtle, which is what I was kind of going for. I didn't want it really competing with everything else. So adhered the main image, and then I'm going to adhere the sentiments. So I got to pop a little piece of foam tape there off the edge part that's going to hang over the main image, and peel off the backing and add a little bit of adhesive. And then as my final little bit of embellishment, I grabbed some Doodlebug sprinkles in tangerine, limeade, and lilac and just added some random sprinkles onto the card. And that finished off the card front. So then for the inside of the card, I'm going to stamp that Witch Sue again, this time just using Memento's Pear Tart ink, and ink that up, stamp that into the inside of the card. And then my sentiment is again from that same Spooked Out Sentiment set. So I'm going to use the stamp positioner again to make sure I get that stamp straight. So get that onto my block. I'm going to ink it up with the Black Licorice Hybrid ink again, and get it onto the block and then get that lined up with the image. And always lining things up with my grid line mat there, so I make sure I've got everything straight and I'm not eyeballing crooked. And that finished it off. So if you're interested in any of the supplies I used, there will be links below the video to my blog post and links to all the supplies used, so check that out. And thank you so much for watching and subscribing and thumbs upping my videos, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!